I'd like to call this meeting to order. Roll call, please, Michelle.
Avon.
Here.
Caledonia.
Here.
Canisius.
Here.
Geneseo. Groveland.
Here.
Lester.
Here.
Lima.
Here.
Livonia.
Here.
Mount Morris. North Dansville. Nunde.
Here.
Ashen. Portage.
Aye.
Sparta.
Here.
Springwater.
Here.
West Sparta.
Here.
York.
Here. I'd like to ask Springwater Supervisor Ben Hunley to please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have the meeting minutes of our last regular meeting for your approval. Are there any corrections, additions that anyone would like to bring forward? Hearing none, I look for a motion in a second, please.
Move, Schuster.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's carried. Some communications. Next, please, Michelle.
June 15th, 2022 at 11 a.m., the annual Livingston County Farm Bureau Tour and Luncheon. It's at Cavetta Farm, 7763 Reeds Corners Road in Dansville. Receipt of notice of intention to file a claim in the matter of Christopher S. Miller versus County of Livingston and Livingston County Jail. Acknowledgement letter received from the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance regarding resolution number 2022-194.
Thank you, Michelle. Next, we have an abstract of claims.
Mrs. Babbitt, approving abstract of claims 5B, May 25th, 2022.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous approval.
Thank you, Ms. Babbitt. Henry, is there any questions or discussion on abstract of claims? Hearing none, I will please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia.
Aye.
Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo. Groveland.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris. North Dansville. Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen. Portage.
Aye.
Sparta.
Aye.
Springwater.
Aye.
West Sparta.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Ayes 1354, absent 655, adopted.
Next, we have privileges of the floor.
Mr. Chairman, I request privileges of the floor for Jason Molino, Executive Director, and Mark McEwen, Wassa Board Chair, for their annual report and member recognition presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Denman.
Good afternoon. Obviously, I'm not Mark McEwen. He couldn't make it. I'm the deputy for Livingston County Water and Sewer Authority Board. And today we're here to recognize Eric Gott for his service on the board. Eric was on the board from 2018 to 2021. The short time that I was with him on the board, our projects were long and well thought out. A lot of achievements, a lot of accomplishments, and I appreciate all the work that he's done for us as a board. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you all. For some of you that don't know, my name is Jason Molino. I'm the Executive Director with the Livingston County Water and Sewer Authority. Not so new anymore. I believe it or not, it was almost a month ago. I started June of last year. On a quarterly basis, I've been able to provide the Public Services Committee with regular updates on our activities. You should have received a copy of our annual report and thought it would be a good opportunity to come in front of the board. Our board had requested for that I come and kind of give you an overview of some of the things that are going on in our neck of the woods. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you. Before I do that, I would like to introduce a new team member that's with us today. Lauren Monaghan is here. She's our new Deputy Executive Director. Lauren, if you just raise your hand over there. Lauren is from the town of West Sparta. So she is a local here, and and came to us from the City of Rochester Water Department. So we're excited for Lauren to start with us. And a few of the projects I'll be talking about today, she will be working on and heading up with us. So chances are you'll be working with one of us closely if we have a project in your area. A little bit about what I want to cover today. Ian said I had at least 35 minutes to cover it in. So he said Michelle said it was okay as well. So I'll try to go through it as much as I can. I do want to note, on a side note, every time I come, there seems to be more people attending these meetings. I just want to make that a note of the record. We'll talk a little bit about the Canisius outlet, some water and sewer initiatives, some capital projects. And some of you may know we had a sewer main collapse just this last Friday. I'll talk a little bit about that and what went into that. So a little bit about us, in case you didn't know, we were established, actually, before we were established, Canisius Lake is one of the first lakes in New York State to have public sewer completely around it. Total completion of in the late 60s and early 70s. We're a public benefit corporation established first by this Board of Supervisors and by the state legislature in 1995. Collectively, we have about 7,000 water and sewer customers, covering about 10 municipalities, 2 plants, 40 some odd pump stations, 50 miles of sewer main, and 75 miles of water line. That continues to grow. The 2 plants, one in Lakeville and a small one in Groveland Station. And we have about 14 employees and about $3.5 million budget for this year. So that's just a little recap on us. Aside from water and sewer services, we also are the operator for the Canisius Outlet Gates. We're contracted by the Compact of Towns to monitor lake levels and balance a series of factors. As you can see, the gates were initially established for flood mitigation and control, and they've taken several different forms over the years to the present gates, which were constructed in 1988. And we continue to stay to work with the Compact of Towns and the county planning department on how we can improve that process in monitoring lake levels and controlling the effluent that comes into the Canisius outlet. There's 3 primary objectives. The first being flood mitigation and control. That's being the purpose of the gate, but also, if you're not familiar, down the southern part of the lake, there is some spawning beds that we also have to maintain certain lake levels in the spring to ensure that those spawning beds are of proper depth. And then also, we have to maintain a certain amount of discharge into the Canisius Creek for our sewer permit, 10 cubic feet per second. In case you're wondering, that is not a picture of anywhere here that's been flooded. I couldn't find one, so I had to find on the internet. And that is not your ice jamming, but the whole purpose, I think, comes true that we try to balance lake levels and a variety of different factors to try to make sure that the lake level is adequate for everyone. I'll get into 2 or 3 different water projects, and I'll talk a little bit about sewer projects. Some of you have heard this, but if you haven't, it's a good little recap. Right now, we're working closely with the planning department on a leak detection survey. The county was able to get a local government efficiency grant a few years ago to update the water supply study, which was done at the end of 2020. Some funding remained to do some additional services, and collectively came with the conclusion of doing a countywide leak detection survey. So anybody that has a water system in the county, whether it's ours, a town, or a village, are able to participate in doing this leak detection survey. So what it is a private contractor comes in, listens to the pipes essentially, and is able to identify and pinpoint leaks, provides a report to that municipality so that you can determine what and how you want to prioritize repairing those leaks. Why leak detection? For several reasons. For the most part, just on a global scale, there's about 6 billion gallons a day of water loss in this country on a regular basis. Water leaks pose several problems. Amongst many of them, if you don't have a water plant and you're buying water wholesale, which most towns do, that's money that you're paying for that water's never getting to your end user. So being able to address leaks means that you're not wasting water, essentially losing revenue. Number 2, as you can see, they create weaknesses in the system. In our part of the state, we have winters that have variable temperatures, and obviously in the winter when we have hard freezes, the ground shifts, and you have leaks like this. Breaks are more susceptible. So when you're able to fix those leaks before you have problems, it avoids breaks, and also you avoid the chance of having any contamination in your public water system. So if anything, this is a water loss and a redundancy as well as a reliability initiative. We hope to start this summer. Most likely have the leak detection done by the end of the summer, so municipalities will have that report on hand, and they can start to make the repairs as they can with the resources that they have moving forward. From a water and sewer authority perspective, we will do a leak detection survey every year on the systems that we maintain as a preventative maintenance initiative so that we can prevent issues in the future from future breaks and future water loss. Meter replacement program. This kind of goes hand in hand with lost revenue and water loss. Any of you that have public water know that you most likely have a water meter in your house that measures the amount of water that you use, and then you get billed based on that measurement on a quarterly basis. Water meters have about a 15 to 20 year lifespan. Right now, we are in the middle of a 2,300 meter replacement program. So we'll start that this summer. The remaining 2/3 of our customers will have meter change outs, hopefully within the next year. And those meters will be replaced, the current ones will be replaced with radio read meters, meaning we no longer have to go up to the house to read the meter with an electronic device. We can just drive down the street with a laptop. It automatically picks up the reading, and then it's uploaded into our billing system. So from our perspective, when you had to do the manual reads, it would take anywhere a month, 3 staff members, 1 month to read about 3,700 customers. So on any given year, we're spending a total of 12 months of staff time to read meters. When we go over to full radio read, it'll take us probably less than a week to 10 days at the most to read all those meters. So in terms of increased productivity, freeing up a full FTE is one reason we're looking to make this investment. Otherwise, as meters slow down or get older, they slow down, which means they're tracking less water. Every once in a while, we'll get a complaint from a customer that says, my water bill is a lot higher than in the past. My meter must not be working. Generally, that's not the case. If your meter doesn't work, it generally counts to your benefit because it's not calculating how much water is going through the meter, similar to an odometer on a car. So as these meters age, they track less water, therefore generate less revenue. We're not billing you for the equitable amount that you're using. So sometimes people ask, will my water bill go up? It might go up 1% or 2%. Generally, you see the biggest return on larger users than residential ones. But nonetheless, this is an efficiency effort. So it makes our operation a lot more efficient and uses our resources in better ways. Lastly, on the water side of things, I'm sorry I'm moving through this. Ian really only told me I have 12 and a half minutes. So the Leicester York water supply expansion. So in February, the Board of Supervisors approved a memorandum of understanding with the Livingston County Water and Sewer Authority, placing us as the project lead to help manage the Leicester York water supply expansion, which we greatly appreciate that level of confidence, and we've enjoyed working in partnership with the county staff and our partners to do that. That happened in February. We are currently in the process of trying to complete an engineering report, which will hopefully identify the water source and the transmission routes that will help bring water to Western York. Western York, with the understanding that those are the primary impacted communities from the salt mine collapse in the mid-90s. That report should be completed by June, enough time to put it on several grant opportunities and different funding lists, and hopefully begin the expansion westward of new and expanded water supply, and hopefully a more cost-effective water supply, so that the western part and then ultimately central and most likely be able to carry on to the southern part of the county will have adequate water supply in the future. But the primary focus right now is with our partners in Leicester and York. So by mid-June, we'll have that engineering report completed and then listed on the intended use plan with the Environmental Facilities Corporation, which is the primary funding source for drinking water. This is a fairly large project. I'd say over $10 million at a minimum, most likely much larger than that, depending on the routes, depending on the sources. So it'll be a large public works project and probably over multiple phases at the end of the day, but very important. I'm going to switch now to sewer, on the sewer side of things. I&I is a focus for us, infiltration and inflow. I've got several pictures there. The one on the top left is what we don't like to see. That's a manhole cover overflowing, generally because the sewer system is either backed up or has too much water in it. The one on the right, the top right, is what we would call infiltration. So we have cracks or breaks in the pipe where you're getting groundwater into the pipe, which adds stress onto our wastewater system. And then the one on the bottom is not the ground catching on fire. It is what we call smoke testing, which is one of the mechanisms we use to identify breaks or cracks in sewer pipes. So in general, infiltration is when you have groundwater that is getting into the sewer system through cracks, disjoints, or joint issues in the sewer system. Inflow is where you have surface water that's getting into the sewer system. So manholes have sometimes holes on them or they're not tightly sealed. When it rains on streets, you get inflow into the sewer system. Anytime you get anything other than wastewater in your sewer system, it puts greater stress on the pipes, It gets greater stress on the pumps if they're a force main, and it puts greater stress on the treatment plant that has to treat it. All wastewater treatment plants are permitted for a certain amount of volume, and when it rains, you generally, if you have a lot of I&I, that rainwater works its way into the sewer system and puts a higher stress on your wastewater plant. What we want to do is we want to identify those weaknesses in the system, correct them through a variety of different mechanisms that will minimize the amount of infiltration so that we don't put that stress on our wastewater system. And that could ultimately, hopefully, prevent future breaks and collapses in the system or failures in the system, like the one I'll show you later on in the presentation. I&I is a good way of doing that. Essentially, all it is a lot of smoke they put with big blowers down into the sewer system, and where it pops up is where you have a weakness. So you can see there in the middle of the lawn, you have some smoke coming out of it. That means you probably have a crack in the sewer lateral, or you might have the cap on the clean out was off. So therefore, the smoke is coming out to the surface. In that instance, we'd want to identify what the issue is. In that specific instance, we'd work with the homeowner to make the correction. In other instances, you might see where it comes out of the street. You'll see it come out of people's eavesdrops. People might get it in their homes, that type of thing. So we try to identify where the weaknesses in the system are, and then we determine how we can best correct it so that we minimize this infiltration. We're going to be doing the village of Livonia, Lakeville, Livonia Center this year from smoke testing. We did the Hemlock area, the northeast area of our system last year, and then probably next year we'll end up doing Canisius Lake area. And that pretty much will encompass most of our sewer system. And then from there, we'll develop capital plans that will help remediate some of the issues. I should mention one thing that's not pictured here: sump pumps. If you have a sump pump, it should not be connected to your sanitary sewer pipe. It should be pushed out to the surface and seeing day of light. It should be either put into a stormwater system or out onto the surface outside your house or into a stormwater ditch. That is probably the biggest contributor from a private side is homeowners when they connect their sump pumps to the sanitary sewer system. So if you have a sump pump connected, call us. We'll help you disconnect it no matter where you live. We'll talk you through those steps as to how you can get it disconnected. But depending on where you live, you could have a sump pump running several times an hour. If it's running several times an hour, just think about the amount of gallons that are being pushed into the sewer system. So disconnecting those are a big part of how we can address I&I issues. The Avon wastewater plant. The Avon wastewater plant has a 1 million gallon a day capacity. There is interest for future development in the town and the village of Avon. And in order to promote some of that development, improvements need to be made to that plant, and most likely expansion needs to be made to that plant. So we've partnered up with the Industrial Development Agency, with the town and the village of Avon to do an assessment of their facility to determine what type of improvements need to be made to that plant so that they can, have a redundancy in their treatment process. So if they have failures, it won't shut down the process. And two, most importantly, how can they expand the capacity of the plant to be able to encourage and allow for future development both in the village and the town. Right now, we're in the process of trying to pinpoint costs and improvements to that. It's been a good collaborative process. And hopefully in the next few months, we'll have an understanding of what type of costs are going to be related to making improvements, and then how do we further this collaboration to actually applying for funding, helping make the improvements to the plant, and having some intermunicipal agreements in place that will allow for shared expenses related to capital improvements to that facility. Here's a quick overview of some of the capital projects we have going on right now. We're just wrapping up a $10 million improvement at our Lakeville wastewater plant. Started in 2019, phase 1, phase 2 started last summer. Should be done this fall, 2022. That's an overshot of our plant. It looks different now with some of the improvements. So if any of you want to come by and check it out, I'd be happy to give you a tour. A lot of good improvements to the plant, basically replacing every moving part of the treatment process. So it'll be a new lease on life for us in terms of having young infrastructure. Water system improvements, about an $8.5 million project coming up. Some of you that live in the Groveland area, we did a water line around the ARS area, Groveland, interconnecting our existing system. We'll be doing the water meter replacements. We'll be doing another water tower or water storage tank probably towards the end of this year and the next year. So decent amount of improvements hope to be done, most likely the spring of 24. Two things that are on our radar that are in the planning process: Canisius Lake pump stations. We did receive a $1.25 million grant a few weeks ago to contribute towards a $5 million project for replacing all the pump stations around Canisius Lake. That's 26 pump stations times 2 pumps a pump station. They're original vintage, so they're about 50+ years old. So it's a great project. Hope to have that done in '24. And then the SCADA system improvement is essentially our data collection and alarming system. It connects to all of our water systems, that connects to our sewer systems and our sewer plant. So we can remotely monitor, keep in mind pressures, volumes, electricity usage, pump run times, all those things collect data so we can make decisions, but also makes us aware when we have something out of whack, when a pump station goes down or there's high pressure in certain areas. It's an alarming system that helps monitor our system. That's about a $2 million improvement. We've got some funding for it, probably expected towards the later end of '24 into '25 for that. So a lot of fairly large investments going on with the authority right now over the course of the next 4 or 5 years. As kind of a close, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the sewer collapse that we had last Thursday and Friday, Thursday evening. We have about 17 to 20 miles of sewer pipe around Canisius Lake, around the entire Canisius Lake, which includes the 26 pump stations I just mentioned. Around 9 o'clock in the evening, 8 o'clock in the evening on Thursday, May 18th, we had a call that a manhole was overflowing on East Lake Road, about 5300 block of East Lake Road, right in Canisius. When we got on scene, we had a manhole overflowing, and unfortunately, East Lake Road, in proximity to the lake, that meant the manhole was overflowing and that untreated wastewater was going into the lake. It wasn't a constant stream. It's part of a force main gravity system, so the pump down south of it would go on, it would pump up. Because there was some type of blockage, the manhole would overflow into the lake. We investigated it, which means we were able to put a jetter up through the sewer pipe to understand where the blockage was, and came to the conclusion that either there was a blockage or a collapse in the main. We were able to work with the Village of Dansville with their vacuum truck to help pump out pump station 4, to bring it to pump station 5, to creating essentially a bypass while we had a private contractor come in and dig that section to understand what was going on. When they dug where we identified the blockage, what we identified was that it was a complete collapse in the sewer main. So right here you can see, you see my pointer right here is the edge of the pipe. This was all collapsed through here. Right here, here's one part of the pipe. Here's a service lateral to another house. There's another one over here. So this section right here was completely collapsed and caved in. The manhole is just off to the right here. When we move this further down here, you can see there were holes in this pipe even more. So once we uncovered it, we identified that it was a collapse. The pipe is about, it's original pipe, so it's late 60s, early 70s, asbestos concrete pipe. At the end of the day, we ended up replacing about 32 foot of 10-inch pipe. It's a pretty sizable replacement. I've had different types of water and sewer breaks throughout my career. This is probably the largest replacement I've had. Not very deep. It's about a 6 foot deep pipe, but definitely added some challenges to it. Some of the things we look for when we do this type of repair or replacement. This is the manhole that would have fed into that line that you just saw that was broken. As you can see here, there's a lot of deterioration around the manhole. The bottom rung of the ladder here was broken off when it went into, and you can see a lot of corrosion around the inside of the manhole. This pipe right here, as you can see, there's different thicknesses around the edge of the pipe, particularly on the top end of it, which means it's been deteriorating for some time. So what this tells us is at this specific location, which is at the end of the force main, you have a lot of corrosive gases that come through here for obvious reasons. And it did its damage to the manhole and ultimately did its damage to the pipe. So as we go through and start to assess when we do that smoke testing, when we look at manholes and inspect them, we take all of these types of experiences and factors into consideration to determine where's the criticality in areas that we need to make different types of improvements so that we avoid this type of situation from happening, and where do we think we're most vulnerable. So we have 17 to 20 miles of pipe around the lake. It's safe to say that they are all not in this condition, but don't worry, this is not going to happen around the lake right now, all over the lake. But this is possible in certain areas of the lake where you have 50-plus-year-old pipe that is getting fed right from the force main. So when we go through, we'll also possibly use some different technologies that will be able to measure the thickness of pipe to be able to know where we want to make that investment first so that we avoid any challenges in the future. These are kind of the things that go into when we look at capital planning in the long term. All in all, we estimated about 1,500 gallons of untreated wastewater reached the lake. And at the end of the day, that's not a whole lot, and likely had no impact on the lake. Obviously, we don't like to see that happen, and we avoid it at all costs. During this event, we were in constant communication with the New York State DEC, so they're aware of everything. And filed the necessary reports we needed to. A little bit about what came away from this event, several things. Number one, there's only one other community in the county other than us that participates in New York Warren. New York Warren is a public works utility mutual aid system across the state. So talking to other municipalities in the community about getting part of New York Warren is important. What we also identified is that we as the authority, we're not part of the mutual aid agreements that the county has with the towns and villages. So I've since reached out to the highway superintendent, talked to him about trying to get on board and being part of your mutual aid system, just from a reliability perspective. Incident command system, we were able to evaluate how we responded to the command, to the incident. In certain instances, we did very well. In certain instances, we need to work on our response internally. Equipment capability and evaluation. We have a very large mobile pump. We have a 6-inch pump that we have, which is on a tow behind. It's a very large mobile pump. It pumps about 2,400 gallons a minute. It's fairly large, essentially a mobile pump station. It's a great pump to have. We only had a limited amount of hose, so we could not use it for a bypass. So evaluating and understanding that we need to do some things from a redundancy perspective to make sure that we have the capability for a bypass if needed. And then asset management, all the things I just talked about with respect to this last picture have to go into how we develop a capital plan and then how we fund that capital plan moving forward. So all in all, the response was good. It was a long response, longer than most. It was probably at all close to a 24-hour evolution, which is a lot for a sewer main collapse. But we were able to work with our partners, the Village of Dansville, were very helpful, appreciative of, and then one of the private contractors that helped us with the bid. So all in all, we were able to get through it fairly unscathed. Future opportunities, I'm not going to go through all these, but here are some things we're working on, anywhere from working with the community on working on the O&M on their water systems. We're working with some 2 towns right now on active sewer district formations, and then waiting for some more water districts to be formed. So we're very active. We've got a lot going on in the authority right now. We're hiring some staff because we have some upcoming retirements, so we're doing some succession planning, bringing new staff on a year and a half advance before those folks retire. The water and sewer world is a complicated world with respect to qualifications of staff. In order to be a wastewater operator, if anybody has any interest, we'd love to talk to you. But it takes anywhere between 1.5 to 4 years to get your license, depending on your level of education. So it's definitely not a sprint. It's a marathon when we talk about hiring staff to get qualified in the water and wastewater world. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I appreciate the time and sharing what's going on with the authority. But be happy to answer any questions today or in the future. Anybody? Yes.
When you have on your drinking water, you have a leak, I know it's under pressure, but how do you know that the water that's beyond that isn't contaminated?
So when you go to identify a leak, you don't always know where the leak is. A lot of times the leak surfaces where, the leak is above where it surfaces, but there's been times where, we've dug for a leak and it may be 10 feet in a different direction or 20 feet in a different direction. It's difficult to tell, if it's been a contamination of the public water system itself. And generally you don't until you get in and make the repair and then flush out the system itself. Generally, in most instances, when we identify a leak, you isolate the leak, before and after it, so that the water is shut off in those areas, dig it up, make the correction, and usually flush the lines out at either end so that any grit or any type of residual that might have gotten into the water line, depending on the size, is flushed out so it doesn't go into the water system. And then from there, you can always take samples if you think if there's any reason to believe there was contamination or some type of infiltration into the water system, you can always take samples later on down the system.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
May I just take a moment, Jason, to thank you. Mark Kozakowski, your operations director of operations, your crew, and all your partners, because that happened in Kinesis. So I just want to thank you and your whole crew for the outstanding job and the hours that you put into that to get it fixed in a very timely manner. And the Kinesis residents appreciate it. Thank you. And I, as a supervisor, thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next, we have some resolutions that require a separate roll call vote.
Mrs. Babbitt, amending the 2022 Livingston County budget, contingency personnel.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Henry. Is there any questions or discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, the roll please, Michelle.
Avon,
Aye.
Caledonia, Canisius,
Aye.
Geneseo, Groveland.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris, North Dansville, Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen. Portage.
Aye.
Sparta.
Aye.
Springwater.
Aye.
West Sparta.
Aye.
York. Ayes 1354, absent 655, adopted. Authorizing the county administrator to submit required documentation to the New York State Attorney General and the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation for use of Axel Nobel settlement funds.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Babbitt Henry. Is there any questions or discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, the roll please, Michelle.
Avon,
Aye.
Caledonia, Canisius,
Aye.
Geneseo, Groveland.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris, North Dansville, Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen, Portage.
Aye.
Sparta.
Aye.
Springwater.
Aye.
West Sparta.
Aye.
York. Ayes 1354, absent 655, adopted. Authorizing allocation of American Rescue Plan funds, Livingston County Information and Technology Services.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mrs. Babbitt Henry. Is there any questions or discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, the roll please, Michelle.
Avon,
Aye.
Caledonia, Canisius,
Aye.
Geneseo, Groveland.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris, North Dansville, Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen, Portage.
Aye.
Sparta.
Aye.
Springwater.
Aye.
West Sparta.
Aye.
York. Ayes 1354, absent 655, adopted. Authorizing allocation of American Rescue Plan funds, Livingston County Tourism, Inc.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mrs. Babbitt Henry. Is there any questions or discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, the roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia. Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo. Groveland.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia.
Aye.
Mount Morris. North Dansville. Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen. Portage.
Aye.
Sparta.
Aye.
Springwater.
Aye.
West Sparta.
Aye.
York. Ayes 1354, absent 655, adopted. Amending the 2022 Livingston County Salary Schedule, District Attorney.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mrs. Babbitt Henry. Is there any questions or discussion on this resolution? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia. Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo. Groveland.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris. North Dansville. Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen. Portage.
Aye.
Sparta.
Aye.
Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York. Ayes 1354, absent 655, adopted. Appointing County Historian Holly Watson.
Mr. Chairman, I move this resolution and ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mrs. Babbitt Henry. Is there any questions or discussion on this appointment? Hearing none, roll please, Michelle.
Avon.
Aye.
Caledonia. Canisius.
Aye.
Geneseo. Groveland.
Aye.
Lester.
Aye.
Lima.
Aye.
Livonia. Mount Morris. North Dansville. Nunde.
Aye.
Ashen. Portage.
Aye.
Sparta.
Aye.
Springwater. West Sparta.
Aye.
York. Ayes 1354, absent 655, adopted.
Congratulations, Holly. Would you like to say a few words?
Thank you so much, everyone. First, thank you to the Board of Supervisors and County Administrator Coyle for the continued support of the County Historian's Office. Your commitment helps us to preserve the history and sets us apart from other counties in New York State. Amy, your mentorship during my career in the past 10 years has meant so much to me, and I certainly wouldn't be here without you. I've appreciated our daily discussions about historical events and perspectives and the nuances of public service. Thank you for all of our years together, which prepared me for this day, and I'll miss you in the office. I also want to acknowledge my grandmother, Barbara Scott, and my grandfather, Mike Mulligan, who first brought me to the county clerk's office when I was a teenager to search deeds when I was doing property research on my house and farm. You introduced me to good research techniques, where to look for the historical records, how to write up a report of the findings. Thank you for encouraging my interest in local history from such a young age. And finally, really at the root of it all, I want to acknowledge my mother and father, Clara Mulligan and Peter Watson, for giving me a childhood and adolescence based on curiosity and the freedom to explore. Because of my family and community, I've been able to go from a kid who was interested and curious about a name carved in a barn to the Livingston County historian. I couldn't be more thrilled and honored to serve Livingston County in this role. Thank you.
Ian, under some other business, you have some more recognition that
I do, yes.
present.
Tough act to follow, Howard. Nice words, thank you. And congratulations to you as well, and welcome aboard. I'm here to recognize Amy Alden on her retirement from the county as county historian. In saying congrats to Holly, it also makes me think of Amy's legacy in the department, but also the legacy with, as Holly mentioned, the mentorship and setting the office up for success moving forward. I think that's, if anything, a department can leave as a legacy to that. It's in really good hands with someone they worked hand in hand with for the last 10 plus years. So Amy can certainly and confidently say that, and that's a testament to her work as well. So prior to Holly, Amy for many years was Department of One, and what a Department of One she was, churning out talks and speeches and presentations, providing research assistance, and producing books and pamphlets at a record pace. Even today, on her very last board meeting day, she was handing out a pamphlet. You probably all saw her come here early and provide the recap of all the bicentennial efforts of last year. So again, even today on her last board meeting, she's doing that. When I'm with other counties in New York, people are surprised when I tell them we have a full service county historian's office with a full-time county historian, now a full-time deputy county historian. We remain in a minority with that setup. At last count, it's less than 10% of counties across New York State choose this type of robust service path like Livingston County. And I think this board has felt over the years, if you're going to offer a service and provide vital offerings to your residents and to your community, the county's philosophy has been, and this is actually a technical guidance document, don't make it half-assed. Make it right, make it good, make it robust, make it full. So Amy has set the bar high and made an indelible mark on the work of the county historian's office in Livingston County, and I would assert all counties in New York. If I look back at some of the highlights, we have the historical marker program, interpretive signs, preservations of records and documents, audio and walking tours, the 200th anniversary celebration of our bicentennial and all the efforts that went along with that. It's in your booklet. An open and publicly accessible research center, multiple books published, the founding with Genesee County of a Western New York historians group that now numbers 11 or 12 counties and hundreds of historians, and resident, and this is probably my favorite one, resident and visitor friendly service offerings, including online website offerings that anybody can access across the world. The list goes on and on. Amy, you have made history with us over the last 25 years. Your legacy is one to be proud of and one that will survive and thrive over many present and future generations due to your commitment to the past and to our county's storied history. And just a quick aside, I did an exit interview with Amy, and we were talking about retirement and what she's going to do and what her plans were. And I'm not kidding. The very first thing she says is, well, I got to finish up the Murray Hill history book. So the very first thing she thinks about in retirement is the work of the county historian's office. So Amy, on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, I thank you for all that you've done. You've been a great partner for me and with me over these 14 years for me and 25 years with the county. So I want to bring you up here and recognize you. Thank you very much. No, it didn't think that. The ding was actually Jason Molino's clock for his time.
Well, thank you. Did I do all that? It's hard to believe. I think a year ago, I was standing here talking about the beginning of our bicentennial and how time had just flown by in a blink of an eye. And I never thought in a million years I would be retiring. I've never not worked. So I'll be around, not going anywhere, just shedding the responsibility. But I am overjoyed to welcome Holly as county historian. I think you're getting a person who, in my opinion, is as dedicated as you could get, and someone that will definitely take the county to history to new heights. So congratulations, Holly, and thank you all so much. Thank you.
Ian, you had another presentation on your other business?
Michelle's got to cue me up real quick.
Oh, okay.
I'm back here. I won't be too long, I promise. So for Don and David, you've heard this before. I did actually present a version of this at the Chamber Legislative luncheon the other day. So you have at least two people who can fall asleep and have an excuse. The rest of you have no excuse. So I am pleased to provide you all with the 2022 State of the County presentation. I took at least, seems like maybe a year or two off from this with everything that was going on. So it's nice to be back in front of you to talk briefly about the sort of report of the county, kind of what we've got going on and what's been happening. So everything starts here in this room, Board of Supervisors. Really the setup of the government itself is the classic example of intergovernmental partnerships. The fact that we're not a county legislature, that you are all town supervisors and wear a second hat and come in here and perform the functions and the duties of county government. So looking at the 2022 budget to start off with, we're about 1,200 staff positions strong. That's spread over 32 departments, from Department of 1 all the way up to Department of almost 400. All totaled, that spins up into a budget size of about $170 million. And I didn't sit here and hand count all of the services within all the 32 departments, but just safe to say it's scores of services spread out across all the county departments. Our previous and our 2022-2023 version of our strategic plan is sort of how we align all of the spending priorities, all the initiative priorities of county government. These were developed in partnerships with a series of, I'll call them retreats, that we had with the Board of Supervisors over the last couple of years. You can read off what kind of our categories are. And so when we have spending, when we have services, when we have staff challenges or staff changes, we have department head recruitments. What we think about is how does it align with what the board as elected representatives have defined as what we want to do moving forward under a strategic plan. So looking backwards, really at a glance of the last really kind of 1.5 years, we've had the continued rebounding from the impacts of COVID. For the first time in some time, the county in the 2022 budget had a lower tax rate and a lower tax levy. You've heard me talk about budget semantics with some other budget officials across counties, across New York State over the years, when they say they've cut taxes or kept the taxes flat. They usually do that with the rate, while the levy still increases. You all, in working with us last year, we lowered both the rate and the levy. So we actually could say with confidence and with certainty that you cut taxes last year. We've had a string of shared service successes. Jason talked about a few of them even here today. I felt we had a good partnership with the Water and Sewer Authority before. I think that partnership has grown and is starting to flourish a little bit more than it has been in years past. That's just one example. The American Rescue Plan Act, two measures that you actually passed today are related to the stimulus monies that the counties received, and we have a transformational opportunity with transformational money. So what are we doing with it short and long term? We had some nice expansion of veteran services programs. I didn't know Jason was going to be here, but I'll mention it anyways. We were really, first out of the gate with some of the outdoor RX programs, and finally deciding as a county, enough with the state back and forth, we're going to do it ourselves. And we supplied our own funding for it, and then the state in turn finally gave us some money. So we kind of have that double good situation with respect to that. We also rolled out some new economic development programs to help out some businesses that were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm not going to go through all these, but just to rattle off some numbers here, because I'm kind of a numbers person. I like stats and figures and budgets and numbers. Just look at some of these numbers. 8,600 licensed transactions at the DMV. The DMV nationally is known as something that it's a butt of jokes, right? You don't want to go to the DMV. The DMV is slow, not customer service. I mean, it has been for decades and decades, but not here. And I think we've had a very long and prideful history of being able to say that. EMS is expanding. I'll talk about that. We got a nice fiber grant for our Light Up Livingston project. 63,000 almost meals delivered to homebound seniors. Not every OFA, first of all, not every county has that type of service provision. And when they do, not every county has the home delivered meal program that's run by county government. So be very proud that your county continues to do that. We have the IDA activity. You'll hear me say this a couple times, only county or first county or nobody else. We're only a county of 62,000 people. We're kind of deemed to be rural, right? And deemed to be, somewhat small, I guess you could say. But the boxing analogy would be we punch above our weight class. And I think if you look at some of the recognition that we've been able to receive, for example, accreditation programs at Public Health, Sheriff's Office, and EMS, we're the only county in New York that can say that they have fully accredited offices in each of those departments. We were one of the top 20 counties, healthiest counties in New York State, and of course, the testing and the vaccine administration was a big deal the last 2 years. 18,000 COVID vaccines administered. So over the last couple of years, we've been, some of our departments have been honored with various awards and recognitions. Just a couple of sampling here, but we were one of the counties leading the Operation Greenlight initiative to recognize veterans last year. We did well with the NACO Achievement Awards. We were the EMS Agency of the Year regionally. We also had the EMS Staff Person, Rob Sparks of the Year as well. Other awards in different departments, including the Sheriff's Office, are noted there. So here's some trends and indicators that I'm looking at with the department leaders and with you as the board members moving forward. The ARPA money is a once-in-a-generation opportunity. It is the largest infusion of federal dollars to local governments in the history of the United States of America, so across the board. So we got $12.2 million. We also have population trends. We lost population in the county. So that's a trend we need to be mindful of and think about and how we look to reverse that. We have poverty levels that are still high in this county. We talk about this at various meetings, especially amongst children. It's an issue for us. It has been for some time. And we think in our departments, particularly the human service departments, literally every day about that stat and what we can do as a county government to improve that stat. We have assessment, which I'm not going to talk about assessment up here today. But of course, we have assessment. Early on, it was about $1 billion with a B. gain in taxable assessed value across the whole county. Went from about $3.5 billion to about $4.5 billion. Now that number will be reduced some, but bottom line, we're talking about new valuations across the county in the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. So what does that look like for taxes? What does that look like for tax rates? What does that look like for the financial outlook? No matter what, we aim for best-in-class service provision for all of our departments and operations. So to finish up, I talk about competitiveness planning because I think that's the segue off of strategic planning. How do we make ourselves more competitive in various facets? The CNR is really the largest single operational center of county government. It's about a $32 million operation, 400 people. And the sustainability of the CNR has been kind of focus one for us and for the Board of Supervisors for quite some time now. It remains that way now. We've got lots of things looking up there, to the positive. We have a 4-star rating. We had the best survey we've ever had. We had admissions on the uptick. We had lots of good news of late. We obviously have some COVID in the facility right now between staff and residents, but we're on the upward trajectory. We have a new director coming in. Eric and company have been amazing in the interim period helping out, and I thank them for that. But that's obviously goal number one this year is the sustainability of that nursing home. Employee recruitment and retention is sort of the issue du jour across every single department. We've had issues before with retention in a couple of different categories of employees, and now it's definitely an issue with the great, whatever you want to call it, resignation, reevaluation, reset, recognition, whatever word you want to use. Government is not immune to that. County government in Livingston County is not immune to that. Lorenz Park, we had a great event the other day, so we continue to do master plan improvements. I can't tell you the amount of people that emailed or called after the Family Fest that had never been to the park and had visited for the first time. Really appreciated what the county has done investment-wise and resource allocation-wise to put money into that park and improve it. It's really neat. It's a jewel. We also have the anti-poverty plan, which I talked about, housing, employment, workforce development, social services, public services. What are we doing each and every day to alleviate poverty, get people out of poverty? Jason mentioned the water supply study. I think one of the things that I'm really proud of with the departments of Livingston County is that when we do a study or a plan or a survey or whatever, it doesn't just sit on a shelf and get unacted on or unacted upon. We do things with it. We have actionable strategies that if a supply study says something, if a planning study, a housing needs assessment, a broadband needs assessment, whatever we've done, we look to act upon it afterwards with resources and staff power, staff time, staff county money towards the effort. One such thing that's really coming to light a little bit more so these days, and the last couple of years we've been fighting on trying to do something with the old prison and redeveloping it. The state has a very poor track record of redeveloping former correction facilities. So we're trying to get it in more of the driver's seat to make something happen there. Just announced this week, the state, I guess, is kind of recognizing that. They've established a new commission about prison closures. So they've asked affected communities to participate. So we got an invite on that this week. I don't know what will become of that, but the bottom line is we are, almost weekly in contact with the state to try to have something happen with that facility. Really, we want it to return to the tax rolls. We want to get to the tax rolls, not really return. Get to the tax rolls, have some private sector enterprise, express interest and make something happen there. I think we do a really good job with all of our economic development and local development, Main Street tourism promotion programs. The allocation you made from ARPA dollars today will go directly into tourism. We'll go directly into READ grants and kind of sub-recipient agreements down to the local level, village, town, nonprofit for all the festivals and the events that are done at the local level. We're going to hopefully infuse some more dollars into those programs, which help out with sales tax, tourism, quality of life, community development. We're already doing quite well with the dialysis extension clinic at the CNR that had a start and a stop to it. We started it, we had to stop it, we had to repurpose it. New partner we found. nice shared services arrangement. We've got that going. I mentioned the housing needs assessment. What's happening there? That's the land bank. That's the supportive housing project that we're considering, the mobile home replacement project that you previously approved with Cattaraugus County Community Action. Again, a study was done. We paid for the study. The study said, you should look at the following things, and we're looking at the following things. And we're actually going and making them actionable. The latest and greatest expansion for EMS is Lima. We're looking at making Livingston County ALS the first ping response in Lima, where right now it's an outside county ambulance service. So we're looking to make that done here in the next couple of weeks. So that would be the latest expansion of the service that is a countywide service that has been here and there asked to do more in select communities because of different circumstances going on in those select communities. Finally, on the competitiveness plan, really it's all about leveraging your assets. So for us moving forward, I think as a county, we've got the college, major asset. We've developed nice partnerships with the college. We have Lechford Park and all the recreational assets. We've got water, so we've got water as a recreational attraction, water as a water resource for drinking water. We've got the downtowns that you can't really recreate if you don't have them, you don't have them. So what we have in those, vibrant historic downtowns. And then really for the county government as an organization, our best resource is our people. So that's why I included just a staff shot of county employees in the workforce. And the signature initiative in 2022 is the Light Up Livingston project. We got the first REAP-Connect award, so thousands of addresses are going to get hooked up with fiber to the home through the Empire Access Public-Private Partnership. We have 2 active grants out there for many more millions of dollars. A new announcement just came out today. We're going to be looking at that. And again, the goal remains of this board for fiber to the home of every address point in the county, no matter what, and no matter how much it takes to get there. Our benefit is we've been able to maximize all these grants. So we're only coming up with 10%, 20% money, 25% money for major $1 million awards coming from the feds and the state. And I think it will take $30 to $50 million in some resource from somewhere to make this happen. We've already got, I think, 15 of it. We've got another 20 in the works as far as grants that are out there. So we're just continuing to chip away at it. Back to my kind of first and only comment. When we get there, it's not if. We'll be the only county in New York State that can say that. In New York State, not rural county, not urban county, not county under 100,000 people. We'll be the only county in New York State that's able to say that when we're done. So state of the county is all of those things. So I would say from a report card, we're doing excellent. We're focused, we're prepared, stable, accredited, results-oriented, and healthy. So that is the state of the county. And thank you for listening. Thank you for all the support that you provide all the county departments and myself to carry all of these good things out. Thank you.
Do you have any other updates for the board?
The clerk of the board does with a note to me. Reminder that the 6/1, June 1st Public Services meeting will be first, and then Human Services will follow because of the timing of the month. So both meetings will be on the first, right? And that's all I have.
Any other supervisors have any other business to come before the board this afternoon? Move to adjourn, Pangrazio.
Second, Westford.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We adjourn.
Congratulations.